Since AI slop has been taking over the internet lately, I figure it's our turn to add to the matrix. In this episode, we'll be using Cursor AI on our second test and attempt to make a game using AI. And for today's practice test, we're going to be remaking the most banger game possible, Card-Jitsu from Club Penguin. Yes, as many of you know, this is a Club Penguin classic. It's a trading card game that's basically just rock, paper, scissors, to be honest. Now I want to remake that in our 2.5D style. And I don't only want the card fighting mechanics, I want to create the lobby where users can walk up to a mat, challenge an opponent, go into a card game, etc. And that includes online play. And this will be our first venture into anything online. Let's see how we did. Now, I think I was way too literal with the prompts when I initially started out, because as you can see, it got this 2.5D kind of style going, but everything was very off. We were very far from the vision on which I was trying to achieve, very far from anything playable, if we're being honest. All these examples look kind of cool and they're cool missteps, but after 4 or 5 iterations of this, I realized I had to completely ground zero and restart the project. That's a good pro tip out there for anyone using AI. I think you should do one test run of the project, and that'll kind of formulate the process and how you should go about it. And then you should start from ground zero, because I find in that development phase is where a lot of the slop and the extra fat gets added on. But once you figure that out, you can start from ground zero and just go straight there. And at the end there, you can even see I attempted to create my own world in Crocodile and then import it in, but I decided against that and completely decided to restart, because these tests are to use AI to shorten the pipeline. I'm still making my quality games on my own, but why am I going to want to do the heavy lifting for something that I should be using to make my life easier? So ground zero everything, let's do it for real this time. Now I don't have the footage of what my initial prompts were, but as you can see, we're already much closer. We have a room, we have our 3 mats, which are going to be our, gameplay mats, and then we have a ball that can walk around the room. So at first, I'm just doing minor tweaks to the movement, making sure the jump and the walking feel smooth, and then also disabling the visibility on this back wall so you can actually see the player when they walk to the back of the room. Next, I change our 3D ball into a plane and then convert that into our sprite sheet. And it gets it almost first try right out of the box, but then I'm running into this really weird glitch and I don't even know what caused it, but it's like pressing W causes you to walk down, pressing B causes you to walk up, and it's a flat room. We should just be walking in the room, you should be colliding with the floor, but as you can see, I had to debug this like 4 or 5 times, took the sprite out, ground zeroed it, you see the debugger pop up here, and honestly, I remember being very frustrated at this point in time. I probably went through like 10 prompts before I just deleted it all and restarted. So these are all clips from that debugging, but eventually we got it, and the player movement felt pretty good. You can kind of see the animations are linking up all as they should, and it's at least close enough to continue on. The player was colliding with the mats as intended, but if you jumped on the mats, then you got stuck in this endless jump animation, so we had to square that away really quick. And then next, you can see the UI is already popped up and I could go into the card game from here. That all generated, almost one shot off that. But let's dial it back a little bit. I want to make some adjustments to the room. I do a false attempt to try to make it a circus tent, but that went so bad that I just decided to keep the room for now. And then once I was happy settling for the room and the color palette, and of course fixing the UI to join the games, then we can dive into the card game itself. And here is basically all just like visual stuff and UI stuff. So you see I corrected the colors of the room, and then I fixed the score system. Instead of being text on the back wall, I wanted to be the actual cards. But then trying to do the cards, it was a bunch of z-indexing stuff to get everything aligned properly. So all this is just tweaking and iterations of the visuals of the card game. I got the scoreboard to look how I wanted. Then we enhanced the cards, added these cool logos to the back. Like I said, the room was looking cool, so we're pretty much ready to move on. Now we're good to implement our victory screen, both for winning and losing. And the entire functionality of the card game is in place. It was baffling how easy that was to do with AI. So then we moved on. I wanted to do some card effects. If a fire wins, it burns the card. If a snow wins, you get snowed out. And that got it pretty much first take, but it was just some small tweaking. Maybe the cards were going wrong directions. Maybe the effects wasn't strong enough. So we're just dialing that in right here. Next, we're going to add an enemy across from your character that you could play against. Obviously, we've had our character there the whole time. We need who they're battling against. Whoop-de-whoop, super easy. Some slight adjustment, of course. And now that that's done, let's go back to the overworld and let's add the different opponents to their respective mats. As you can see, slight tweaking here. Try to put them in the mat at first. Didn't take much to get them on board. And then we set it up so whichever mat you go to is the enemy you're playing in game. I'm just testing all that out right here. Went through some small bug fixes with the shadows. I wanted to have shadows so when you jump it displays. That took a little bit of tweaking. Now you can see we're testing out mobile optimization to make sure the joysticks and the button works on mobile, both vertical and horizontal. That was really simple, nothing too crazy. And now we can move on to multiplayer. Like I said, this was my first test in a multiplayer and we got it running locally pretty quick. You know, at first you see the characters spawn in the room, they're not moving. Then we get player movement for the different players. Then after that, we get proper animations for the players. And it's just a slow progression of me adding one step at a time until it's basically functioning multiplayer. You see, if I click a player's name, then I could challenge them to a duel. You can accept or decline on the other side. And locally, everything was running exactly how it should. It was super cool to see other players running around in the lobby. But then whenever I published this online and was actually hosting it on the site, that's a different problem. Running those servers were an obstacle I wasn't ready to tackle yet. So that's basically the state of this game. It's up and running single player. The multiplayer functionality was not quite there. If you log on to the website, cards.theperformers.com, it's just gonna say connecting to lobby endlessly. And that's about as far as I got with this prototype. I think it was like a 3-day journey maybe. 3-4 days on and off or something. And it was a great first test. I had to leave it here, had to walk away. These are just small experiments for me to test different things that, I don't always have the time for when working on the bigger projects, but I'm really satisfied with how this came out. It was a great test. All this footage is from early March. So obviously AI has gone better. I've gone better since then. But yeah, that's our Card-Jitsu test. Next week, we're gonna be exploring our first multiplayer game that actually worked, but that's all I got for this one. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. It's the circus, not the circus. We'll catch you next week.